We are live. So, welcome everybody to another episode of Motivation and Mindset. I am James Morris, President and CEO of TMC Solutions, and I'm here with my brother Jermaine.
Hi, yes, I'm Jermaine Morris. I'm a certified coach and consultant based out of Sacramento, and I operate under the premise of self-awareness without judgment. And we get together every week and talk about what's going on.
Yeah. This is getting to be a really fun show, right? We've gotten some excellent feedback, and it's just been very beneficial to me. Opportunity for us to have some open, honest, transparent dialogue. Definitely encourage people to chime in if you have questions and comments. One thing I like to always say is that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not prescribing anything. We're just two brothers that are talking about real life issues, things that we see going on in our lives. Typically, what I will do is I will address the issues from a business perspective, and Jermaine will talk about it more from a personal perspective. So we tend to bring those two together. I think what we're finding out more and more is it's a very thin line, right? The things that are happening at home are the same things that are happening at work, right? So let's jump right into it. So this is a good one. Um, you always hear about the comparison. So this week we're talking about comparing yourself to others, and I think that's something that goes on. It's universal, right? Whether we're comparing in the sports world, LeBron to MJ, who's the GOAT, whether it's Brady to Montana, Obama to Trump, we're always comparing, right? And so we want to talk about that today. I'll start off a little bit. So I'm president and CEO of two companies. We have a distribution fulfillment company and a staffing, recruiting, consulting firm. So we find people for companies that need people. And in my 30 years in the workforce, the one thing that always kind of makes me smile is the guy that comes in and says, that's not how we did it at my last job.
Yeah.
Well, at my last job, employee engagement was so much stronger. At my last job, the pay was better. At my last job, and it makes me wonder, why'd you ever leave your last job, right?
Like
And
you
I've
still
actually
there?
gotten to a point where I've actually told employees, this isn't your last job,
Yeah.
right? We do things here differently. Not saying we're better, certainly not saying we're worse, but we're not your last job. So what I need you to do is kind of look at where you are now and start to dress yourself in those clothes, right? And there's a reason you left your last job. Now it may have been a decision you made, maybe a decision that they made. Um, but from a professional perspective, and then I always get, as you go up the ranks, right? So you get supervisors comparing themselves to the previous supervisors,
Yeah.
or supervisors comparing themselves to their managers.
Yeah.
Well, he's a manager, but I do all the work,
Yeah.
right? What am I doing? So, you know, we see the comparisons a lot. One of the things that I always try to encourage is tell people, let's focus on what's important, and the value. Now we can set standards.
Yeah.
We can set standards, we can set minimum bars, but to sit and compare yourself, this company to that company, versus investing the time and the energy into making the company that you're working for now better,
Yeah.
right? And there may be some best practices from your previous employment that you can bring, but we really try to encourage people. But I think on this topic, it's going to be a lot more fun hearing the personal perspective. So, I hear it a lot. Jermaine, I hear some of my buddies, right? I got a buddy, that was married and got divorced, and now he's remarried, and all he can talk about is all the great things his ex-wife used to do,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, man, you were miserable. I remember that. You were miserable. So talk to me a little bit about Um, why do people compare themselves to other people?
Okay, so I think that the two parts of that is there's a difference of me comparing you to somebody else versus the difference of comparing me to somebody else.
Okay.
So if I'm comparing, this relationship to a previous relationship, that's like the external part of it, of comparison. That just
Okay.
might be my experience. That might be I had more fun here, or I used to make more money working there, or I had more free time here. Like those are experiences that when we're talking about experiences of other people.
Right.
When we're comparing ourselves to other people, um, there's a lot of things that some of that is imposed. So sometimes we start comparing ourselves to other people because we've been in spaces where we were constantly compared to other people. You're not as smart as your sister. You're not as athletic as your brother. You don't work as hard as Steve over there. You don't move as fast as Reggie. Like you can be
Yeah.
in an environment where you're constantly compared to somebody else. So then you just naturally start to compare yourself because that's just kind of a part of your operating system now.
Yeah. So I
And
think it's pretty normal.
normal to compare, yes, but there's a lot of things that are normal that may not be beneficial.
Okay. Okay.
And so there's a difference if we're looking at benchmarks types of thing comparison. Grading on a curve is a comparison. Okay, well, where's the A at? Where's the B at?
Right.
Okay, so if we're talking about metrics in that line, but if we're talking about just in our personal life, of just like I'm looking at what my neighbor drives, or I'm looking at the couple across the restaurant and I'm looking at what I think their relationship is like based upon what I'm seeing. And now I'm looking over at my mate and I'm like, well, we don't smile like they smiling, or
Yeah.
we don't. And that can become problematic because and more often than not, the comparison is not positive us. So most of the time when we're comparing ourselves to other people, it's usually because usually we're on the wrong side of the comparison.
Right. Right. Well, I'm gonna tell you something that's, and I'll flip back over to the business
Yeah.
side because I'll tell you a recent struggle that I've had, and as you know, I do a lot of consulting with some pretty hot brands, which I enjoy that part of my work the most. But one thing that I found that I've been doing is I've got clients that hire me.
Yeah.
Hey, James, we need you to come in and help us improve our quality management system.
Yeah.
Hey, James, we need you to come in and help us work on our operational excellence
Yeah.
or a Six Sigma program. And I'm like, absolutely. What do you know? We'll come in. And then I come in and I get into the nitty gritty. Now, I'm a business owner and I get this company that calls me up and wants me to come help them, you know, grow their business,
Yeah.
improve their business, fix things that are broken. And I'm doing my job, but as I'm doing it and as I'm getting into the details and I'm looking at their metrics, I'm thinking, how is this company so much more profitable than my company?
Hmm.
Right. And I tell you, it eats at me. I'll get in and I'll say, well, like, I'm so much smarter than the owner of this company, but yet they're making 2.5x what I'm making. It doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
And I'm talking with another one of my colleagues, and we were laughing. He says, how is it that we're subject matter experts and all these people are calling us to help them fix their business and they're running better than our own businesses? And I says, it's almost like a friend of mine, Kate, always talks about the cobbler's kids' shoes.
Okay.
The shoemaker, they always say, the guy who makes the shoes in town, his kids always had the raggediest shoes on his
Oh,
feet.
okay.
The mechanic always has the raggediest car. The beautician's got the nappiest head. It's always they're so busy fixing everybody else's stuff
Okay.
that they're not taking time. So, but one of the things that I can tell you is when I start to, and I'm competitive, as you know, when I'm comparing myself to other business owners, I do take that extra step to say, what are they doing better than me?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm one of those people that I take the subjectivity out of it. I want to be completely objective.
Okay.
Their EBITDA is 17%.
Yeah.
So what are they doing to generate this profitability? And
Okay.
I've implemented those things. So I think in those instances, it's positive
Yeah.
for me to compare, but use the information not to beat myself up,
Yeah.
but to drive improvement. So on the personal side, when do you think comparing yourself to others can be beneficial?
Well, so it's the exact opposite personally.
Okay.
So there is no metric to show who has a better marriage. Like there is no percentage to look at who's got, a better relationship with their children.
Okay.
You can sit there and say, okay, well, here's a parenting metric. Well, based upon my kids get better grades than your kids, so I must be doing a better job as a parent. No, not necessarily. Me and my wife have date night 3 times a week. You said you guys go out 3 times a month. I'm doing marriage better than you. Not necessarily.
Right.
It's all subjective. So
Absolutely.
if you're trying to go at it through the lens of a metric, that's
Mm-hmm.
already a flawed concept when we're talking about like the interpersonal aspect of because we'll look at somebody else and we're like, oh, he just bought his wife a new car. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to buy my wife a new car. You have no idea what they had to go through or their situation to get it.
Right.
You know,
Or the bind that it may or may not have placed them in.
all those things, it may be, okay, they're overextending themselves to buy the car. It may be, that might be some inheritance money for her losing her mother. Okay, do you want to lose your mother for the money to be able to buy her for the money to get her car? Do you want to
Right.
go through what she went through to be in that position to be able like we don't know all those things. So
Right.
we'll just look at the face value thing of oh, they look like this. She
Right.
looks like this. He looks like this. And I'm comparing myself to social media highlight reels. I'm comparing myself to snapshot moments that I've seen. And if you tie together how much you've actually seen, you're like, oh, I've seen them 7 minutes this week. And I'm trying to say that I have a good understanding of their life and what they're going through to be able to judge if I am better or worse off than they are. These things are not real. So when we start going down the rabbit hole of comparing ourselves to other people, we create a whole world of unrealistic expectations based on a lack of actual information or experience.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. And, I've got some friends, and I'll go to both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I've got some friends that, I hear people talk about, oh, look at them, look at what they do. Like you're saying, they go into the movies, they doing this and that. And I talk to my guy, and I know he's living. I'm not gonna say he living foul, but I'm saying there's some opportunities for improvement, right?
Yeah.
But everyone doesn't see that, right?
Yeah.
And then when you kind of talk to him about it and be like, man, your relationship appears to be so perfect.
Yeah.
Why would you be out doing extra? And then he starts to be like, hey, man, it's not what you think it is. Like, I'm miserable. And I was like, wow, no one would have thought about it. And you would be surprised. And I was telling him, the facade that you two are putting on, y'all putting a lot of pressure on a lot of couples out here, and maybe that's a good thing. So I guess one thing I would ask you, and again, I'm gonna just, I'm gonna always challenge you a little bit.
Yeah.
So by people making these comparisons, how's that affecting their lives?
Okay. 2 parts. So the first part I would challenge, the first part is that they may not necessarily be putting on a facade. So people are living their life and we're making a decision on what that means to us based upon what they're looking like. So if they're going on vacations, if they're doing trips, they're doing dinners, they may be like, look, we're a sneeze away from getting divorced. We need to be proactive and intentional about spending time together. So
Right.
here's the schedule. Here's this, like we're doing these things to try to save what we have. Everybody else just sees, oh, they're always on vacation. Oh, they're always smiling. They could really be having to work at doing that.
Okay.
And so they may not be doing it for public opinion. They're just like, this is what we got to do if we're trying to save this. So other people may view it one way, but they may not be because that's what happens. A lot of times people get divorced or break, like, oh, they were putting up a front. No, they were living their life.
Yeah.
We decided to make what we were looking at mean something. So it's not necessarily that they're putting on a facade. That's just one thing.
Yeah,
And,
that's fair.
and then what does that do to us if we constantly live in a state of comparison? Is it comparison is the thief of joy? It's hard to be in the moment and accept where we are because we're constantly thinking we're supposed to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it undermines our self-esteem sometimes and self-worth to what we have accomplished. That B we got that we worked and studied and got a tutor and climbed up from a D plus at to get a B. Instead of recognizing the growth and being proud of ourselves in the moment, the first thing we're doing is beating ourselves up because our sister came home with an A.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that can become defeating. And it's like, oh, well, then what's the point? Like, and can really start to take some of the momentum out of what we have accomplished because it's not what somebody else did or didn't do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen that, right? Even some of my clients, I look at them on the surface and I'm thinking like, man, I'm jealous, right? I mean, this person, they hire me. I need to be hiring them.
Yeah.
But then as you get, underneath the covers, as we would say, you start to realize that there's a reason they call me.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes the reason may be I'm at 20 million, but I'm trying to get to 30 million.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's a side of it. On the personal side, one thing that I really try to focus on as an example is, say, fitness.
Okay.
And I watch a lot of videos, and I'm always trying to learn about how to eat better, how to exercise a little bit better, and things like that. And I look at the comparisons of the general public, right? They get off on social media and they start looking at these influencers, and they look at the Kim Kardashian bodies and I don't know all of them, Megan Thee Stallion, and these people that are super fit. And I can remember growing up, watching Rocky 3.
Okay.
And thinking, I want to look like Carl Weathers, right?
Okay.
What do I need to do to look like Carl Weathers, right? And I don't have the diet, the personal training, or probably the ancillary extra vitamins that it would take, but it did kind of motivate me probably to do more, But I think one of the things that I read is, when you're looking at, people that are real notorious about comparisons or comparing themselves to others, and whether it's business or personal, is that I guess one of the things you got to do is understand your triggers.
Okay.
Right. Understand your triggers, because if you don't control it, the impact that it can have on your mental health is significant.
Yes.
Right. And you can really start to beat it down. So I know I'm kind of, overlapping into your piece, but that's just something that I read. It was just like the mental health aspect of it.
Yeah. It's so I think there's a difference between, so like if you're looking at goals. So if you're trying to work out and you put up a handful of pictures of like, okay, this is what I'm working towards. Trying to get abs like so-and-so, biceps like such and such, back like so-and-so. Like I'm using this as
Right.
if nothing else, a vision board.
Okay.
I'm saying this is what I'm working towards. That has its place. Now, if once it gets to the point to where I'm starting to treat myself a certain way because I don't have what they have, or I'm starting to feel a certain way about them because they have what I want, that's when it starts to let us know when we're starting to get into an area that could become detrimental.
Okay.
So if comparing, your neighbors, your siblings, your friendship circle, so-and-so just got a promotion, how'd they get there? Put in overtime, went back to school, upgraded their operating system, upgrade their skill set, moved up. Now they're doing better. Okay. All right. If I want to be, I see where he's going. We started at the same. He's now lapping me in what I view as life, whatever. Okay. Let me start getting on that.
Yeah.
If I'm saying that, okay, I feel a certain kind of way about him because he went back to school. He ain't this and this. Okay, now I'm not in a, this is not a motivation thing that I'm looking at. This comparison is now harmful. If all of a sudden I start beating myself up for work I didn't do for a goal I didn't reach, that's detrimental.
Yeah. And I think that's the one that I see the most.
Yeah, I don't have the six pack like so and so, but I don't eat like they do. I don't work out like they do. I don't have the money and resources and the trainers and all this stuff like they do. I don't have the Photoshop skills that they do. I don't have all these things, that come with that can be detrimental in that comparison, because we don't know. We're just assuming, and then we make judgments about ourselves or other people based off of assumptions.
Yeah. So when you start thinking about just along the same lines of what you're just touching on,
Yeah,
you know, the one thing I would almost suggest is like limiting your time on social media.
that's huge.
Let's talk about that a little bit, right? I'm somebody that's like, I'm hard on myself, right? I'm my own worst critic, I think is the term that you hear. And I'm scrolling on, again, I'm probably a little getting old, the TikToks and the Instagrams, and I'm scrolling it for entertainment purposes, but it's making me feel miserable.
Yeah.
Because it's causing me to judge myself, because judge myself harshly.
Yeah.
Because I'm making comparisons. So let's talk about a little bit some of the impact of social media, on that whole comparison.
So social media, you start taking all these collective areas. There's like 2 billion people on social media, something crazy. So when people talk about like the negative effects of social media, this is a self-inflicted wound.
Okay.
So it shows you what you show attention to. So that's why if you go to Instagram, I would say, you want to know who somebody is, go to their Explore page.
Explore page.
The Explore page. The Explore page is when you go on it and it just shows you a bunch of boxes of particular things that you've shown interest in. So if you go to one person's Explore page, it's daffodils and dandelions, and it's all this, soil to grow. It's all farming stuff because that's what they like. That's what they click on. That's the videos they want. You look at somebody else, it's all sports and highlight reels.
Mm-hmm.
You look at somebody else, it's all, women in their jiggly parts. It's showing you what you look at. Now, they'll talk about the algorithms that they'll try to work stuff in, but if you pay no attention to it, it will segue into something that you do pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find yourself looking at the Explorer page, like, these are all the things that I'm spending my time focused on. And if these are the things that are making me feel bad about myself, I need to stop giving attention to these things.
Yeah.
It's not social media in itself. Social media will show you there is, like the joker says, there's a YouTube video for everything.
Yep.
If you said, I want to know how to perform, open heart surgery on a squirrel, there's a video for it somewhere. Somebody done thought about that once before. It's the same with social media. Anything you're looking for, somebody has posted something about it somewhere.
Right.
So you can tailor make what it is you look at, what's on your feed. And if you have a feed full of things that are making you feel bad about yourself, instead of starting with what's the issues with social media, what is it about me that this is how I'm choosing to spend my time, my energy, and my focus?
Right.
Like, why am I doing this to myself?
Yeah. Well, what it sounds like is, you talked a little bit more about, you don't know what's happening behind the doors of certain homes, right? You see them on the outside in the new car and well-dressed and fancy restaurants. It sounds like what I'm hearing you talk about is just the detriments of comparing my outside to someone else's outside, right? Without knowing what's on the inside.
Well, no. So I'm comparing my insides to their outside.
Okay.
Because I know me. I know whatever faults or deficiencies or issues I have. I'm only seeing their highlight reels. And so these are very cultivated pictures and videos of specific stuff that that people want out.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, I'm choosing to say, I can say in conversation, I know these are highlight reels. I can say in conversation, I know these are Photoshop pictures. I know these aren't real things. I can say that in conversation.
Yeah.
But some part of me is still internalizing this when I look at them by myself. What's going on with me that's the case? That I know they don't really look like that. I've seen them video. I know that's not how they are in real life, but yet I'm still looking at their picture and I'm still feeling a certain kind of way about myself.
Yeah.
What's going on with me? I'm about self-awareness, and it's without the judgment. It's not I'm wrong because I feel that way. or I'm wrong because I have these jealous or envious thoughts, or I'm wrong because I'm minimizing my accomplishments because I'm comparing them to somebody else. Let's remove if that's a right or wrong thing and just look at why am I doing it? Why am I unhappy with me so much that their happiness makes me feel bad about myself?
Wow.
That their six pack makes me hate my body, that their new car makes me curse the car I pulled up in. What's going on with me that I internalize what I'm looking at through that lens
Okay.
and now start thinking negatively about myself and my life?
Okay. So, and as I, as I look at, I like where you're going there. And again, this is as much therapy for me as anything else. As I say every week, one of the things that I think about, one of the many things I think about is, I talked about working with my clients,
Yeah.
right? And one of the areas when I start comparing, it's usually the balance sheet.
Yeah.
What was their revenue? What's their profitability? Why is their revenue so much higher than mine? What are they doing different from me? They're doing a product, I have a service, I get it to some degree. But what I have found in business is if I double the sales of my company, am I going to be that much happier?
Yeah.
Right? Am I even? And here's what's really interesting. And there's probably a lot of people out there that will attest to it. If I doubled the sales in my company, would I even take one additional day of vacation?
Yeah.
Probably not. So there has to be something on the personal side where people have to realize that the money doesn't buy happiness.
Yeah.
Right. I know that so many of the I've got your nephews, right? Got the young sons, and growing up in this hip hop era, and they look at the cars and the chains and the clothes and the shoes and the mansions that they rent for a day to do the video at, and the you know dozens of very attractive young ladies scantily clad, and they're thinking that's the life I want to live.
Yeah.
Right. And so you start to think the importance of reminding, or the importance of people understanding that money doesn't buy happiness.
Yeah.
Right. While you out here looking at, you think about somebody my age, around my age group, I can remember, I guess early 20s watching Mike Tyson,
Yeah.
not just in the ring, but on an episode of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. I don't know if you remember that.
Now I remember Robin Leach. You got
Robin Leach,
Mike
yeah.
had a tiger in the backyard and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah, and doing all that stuff. And then you think about what hell was he living in?
Yeah.
Right. We didn't know that. Right. So money does. I think grandma used to say, what profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? They're looking at just the financial aspects, money buying happiness.
Yeah. If you are hung up on, so what I look at is that everything has a buy-in, everything has a cost. So you may say, okay, I didn't like the comparison of the two guys who started at the same. Now somebody's a supervisor making more money. Okay, you didn't go back to school like they did to make money like they make now, but what did you do instead?
Right.
Okay, well, maybe I didn't go to school to make this more money. Maybe what I did was I spent more time with my wife and kids.
Yes.
So even though I didn't put myself in a position to make X amount of dollars over here, I was at every little league game and every ballet recital.
Right.
So if I'm looking at, it's not about what I didn't get or what I didn't do. It's about what did I do in its place, because that was the buy-in.
Right.
That was the cost. So if you're like, hey, I didn't, I had a friend graduate high school, they buckled down right off jump, started college in the fall, they went through 4 years, then did another 2. Now they're in a full-fledged career. What did you do? Man, I partied for the first 3-4 years, bounced around. Maybe you was a waiter or a busser. You did a bunch of stuff. Now you 30 buckling down. They're already fully established in their career. If you stand side by side at 30, trying to say what they have versus what you didn't have, okay, well, what did you do? Okay, no, you didn't do what they did to have the money or the position that they have at 30. What did you do in its place? Right. I fell in love. I had a bunch of great summers traveling abroad, having experiences. I had amazing experiences with friends and family and did this, this, and this. They have stories of studying. Now, maybe when you get back together at 40 and have the conversation, you may be like, well, what did you do the last 10 years? Well,
Right.
because I got myself in position to my 20s, I'm now kicking it in my 40s, where you're now working in your 40s. And then you can make that comparison. Well, what did you do different? But it's the fact that it's not getting hung up on if I don't, it's like not what I don't have or what I didn't get or what I'm not doing. What did I do? What did I get?
Yeah.
What was the buy-in? What was the cost? And how do I feel about that?
Yeah. Well, one thing that, again, I know I tend to be, not do a great job at it, but we have to count our blessings because I agree with what you said 100%. I know that I have buddies that had a blast through our 20s
Yeah.
and early 30s and maybe mid 30s, but they had a blast. Well, I'm still a recovering workaholic. Then they buckle down. Well, I'm sitting here thinking I'm 58 months from retirement.
Yeah.
Right. Why? It's because of what I did when I was 24.
Yeah.
And what I did when I was 29. So the one thing I would say is that, for those people professionally and personally, you got to count your blessings.
Yeah.
You have to be appreciative of what you have, right? Everybody's journey is a little different.
Yeah.
The definition of success is different for everybody.
Yeah.
The definition of, what makes you successful. For me, I've always kept score in business wins. And Brian, my boy B, B has traveled. B has stayed in the military, right? Your oldest nephew James travels, right? And so he, I think I was just telling you, he was in LA last weekend at the Jimmy Kimmel show or something like that.
Yeah.
But you count your blessings. Everybody's definition of a win is different. So you almost have to quit comparing yourself.
Yeah.
And start to think, okay. And some of my comparisons, I'm learning as I study more.
Yeah.
And become more comfortable with myself. I'm looking at the man in the mirror, not to be overly cliche.
Yeah.
Whether it's taking pictures of the way I look in January and then have a plan to take another picture in March. What improvements did you make? Right. I'm competing with myself. Yeah. Right. I know I'm not going to look like Carl Weathers in Rocky 3, but what's the best version of James Morris? Right. And how does James Morris look? And I'm not even just talking cosmetically, spiritually, mentally, from a relationship perspective. How's James looking at 55 compared to how he looked at 25?
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that, I find myself counting my blessings. And then I'm using my comparisons as motivation.
Yeah. So what I look at is, and I can appreciate that. I think when we come to our comparisons of other people, of being mindful of, like, we don't want what they have. We really do. Because more often than not, if there's somebody, if it's Carl Weathers in Rocky 3, would you really want to trade places with his life? Because what it is when we look at somebody else and whatever it is that they have or whatever it is they're doing, okay, this is not a la carte. Would you want to be them?
Right.
And then you find out, what is the adage? If everybody dug down and threw their problems in the air, and then when they landed on the floor and everybody saw everybody else's problems, you break your neck to get yours back.
That's right. That's right.
Like, it's right. Like, oh, I wanted to be him so bad. Then all of a sudden you find out that their cancer's been in remission for the third time. You find out they're dealing on their second bankruptcy. They done lost a child. Their mama's dealing with it. You be like, oh, no. I don't want their life.
That's right.
Like, I saw something that made me want to compare myself to them. But when we all lay all our lives on the table, It's like, no. I'll take my back.
Yeah,
I'm good with my
absolutely.
4-pack and 2 bottles. I'm good with my
Yeah,
I'm good with my Camry. I don't need, I'm straight. We good over here.
yeah,
And so just being mindful when we start looking at other people and saying, okay, I want to do this like they did that. It's not through the lens of I want to get it how they got it or live it how they live it. It just may be, okay, these are maybe some things I want to incorporate into my life, the way I do things that fits for me, that I'm willing to buy in on.
right.
I may not be willing to do the things that they did for money. I may not be willing to put up with what they put up with for that position. I may not be willing to sacrifice what they sacrificed to live there.
Yeah.
There's a part of a Lil Wayne song I always remember I thought was profound, even though it was coming from Wheezy.
Yeah.
And he was talking about a song. He was like, the reason you got to remember, the reason why he's standing next to me is not the same reason why I'm standing next to him. And so that part is huge because we look at we're both standing in the same place. You don't know the journey it took for them to get here. Either they had to crawl, scratch, fight, or how far they fell that you guys are standing next to each other.
Yeah.
So when we have those comparisons in the moment of like, I want to be like that or be like them or have what they have or do what they do, we don't know how they got to the position they stand in. I said, just because they stand next to you ain't the same reason why you standing next to them.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you say that because growing up, my first choice of what am I going to do, who am I going to be, I wanted to be an athlete, right? Wanted to be an athlete, so I worked really hard to try to do that. That's what I wanted to do, and that wasn't my path, right? It wasn't the path that, for whatever reason, we can say that's not the path the Lord wanted me to go down. Might say I was just a little too short and a little too slow. I mean, for whatever reason, that wasn't my path. And I've got some very close friends that had very successful careers, in the National Football League and the NBA and even in baseball, right? And they were like, wow. But what's so interesting is over the last 20 years, if you knew how many of those guys called me up saying, are y'all hiring?
Yeah.
I need a job. I'm like, what do you need a job? You spent 10 years in the NFL. What do you mean you need a job? Like, I need a job. Right. And I think about, had I gone that route, I probably would have played as long as I could, 3, 4, 5 years, drug these old bad knees off, went and got a job. And because I believe I'm where I'm supposed to be and because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, if I had played, I'd still be sitting here on this podcast in front of you right now having this discussion, right? Because I wouldn't still be playing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think, I was listening to what you were saying, and, I always try to dissect the words to kind of get to, like, where's that nugget? What am I hearing? Yeah. And, the one thing that I felt like I was hearing was focus on your strengths, focus on your strengths, not the person on social media, not, hey, I used to work at a great company, now I'm working at a company that's not so great. Or I used to be in a great relationship, now I'm with somebody that makes me miss the ex, or, all of that stuff, right? What I'm finding, or what I heard you say, was there's value in focusing on your strengths, So I think that
be where your feet are. And so, if you are in a job now and it's not what it was, a relationship now was house that wasn't tax bracket wasn't, be where your feet are. Like, okay, this is where I'm at now. I'm here not by chance. So there's a series of events and choices and decisions that I made that put me exactly where I'm standing.
Yeah.
So rather than if I
good or bad,
I let's just remove, it just is.
Yeah.
You made 2 rights, 3 lefts, a right, and a U-turn. The left isn't a good or bad left or a good or bad right. It was just a left.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where you're standing now. And how can I make the most of where I'm standing? Yeah. Do I make more this year than last year? Maybe not. Okay, but how can I make the most of where I'm standing?
Yeah.
Okay, how can I make this experience more pleasurable than the one I had? Maybe I have to put more work into the relationship. Maybe the previous one was with somebody who used to plan everything. So all I had to do was show up. This person needs, I have to plan more with this one than I did the last one.
Right.
That one had never been anywhere. So everywhere we went was a new experience. This one is well traveled. I got to think about it a little bit more when we go somewhere. Doesn't mean we can't have the same, I can't have enjoyment. I just got to do it differently now.
Right.
I have to do differently on this job now. I need to do differently and just understanding, okay, holding on to the relationship I had 5 years ago and comparing it to this one is only going to make this one bad.
Mm-hmm.
Unless if I'm using it as these are the things that worked, let me see if these work over here too. Okay. If they don't, fine. If they do, fine. It's just, does it work or doesn't it? Are we here or are we not? To me, the removing the judgment part is that judgment carries, it's just like a sack. If I told you to carry 50-pound sack of pennies with you everywhere. Now you have to walk 2 miles anyway, but it's a big difference if you got to walk with the pennies or not.
Yeah.
All the extra judgment are the pennies. So right. The more of those we can get rid of, the better. And just say, so instead of beating myself up because I make $10,000 a year less than them, how can I make the most of the $10,000 less I make?
You know what? And I'm gonna tell you something else we can do. and not be haters.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to, while we're judging and comparing ourselves to other people, other companies, other relationships, how about we just celebrate those folks? That dude that's lean and mean and 10% body fat with the six pack, let's celebrate him. I'm not going to look at him and beat myself up. I'm not going to look at one of my clients' companies and beat myself up because this person has a higher operating profit than I do. How about I say, congratulations on what you've built. Congratulations on what you've grown. So now my mind is thinking differently. I'm not comparing us, right? I've removed the contention from, I keep sliding over. I'm removing the contention from my own mind, right? Because this is where I do all the battle. The battlefield is in between my ears, right? And so one thing that I find myself trying to do is, before I judge that person, and I'm still going to use them as a benchmark, I'll still use it to try to get better. But, let's celebrate the people that we're comparing ourselves to.
Yeah, that's the difference between starting off from a position of gratitude. So I'm appreciative of your 30-year marriage because you're a resource for me to ask questions. You're somebody who's been where I haven't been. So when things happen, and if you're 30 years deep and I'm 5 years deep, I know there's some things that you've dealt with that I haven't seen yet or that I'm dealing with right now. Instead of me hating on you, they ain't really happy. They ain't still in love. He must have stepped out at some point. Like, instead of going down that road, I'm practicing gratitude. I'm appreciative that I know somebody who's been married 30 years.
Yeah.
There's so much, wisdom in that. I'm appreciative of somebody whose kids are doing well. And okay, well, how did you try that? You charter school or you homeschooled, okay. Instead of, well, so-and-so's daughter got an A. Well, and then looking at my kids sideways. Okay, well, what did you do? Oh, you went and got a tutor. And then you got them enrolled in a summer program. And then you got somebody come out of house once a week.
Right.
That's how she got the A.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at my kid, why don't you study enough? Like, oh, I'm going to use these. You got the six pack. What did you do? Oh, you cut out and you added the, okay, I thought, you went and got the shot. Oh, you.
Yeah.
Ozempic gold winner. Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay, this is all right. Now I'm practicing gratitude. I'm appreciative of having you as somebody in my circle that I can talk to and learn from. Yeah. Either the things I want to do or not do. I don't need to hate on you for your whatever it is you're accomplishing. I'm appreciative of, I know somebody who does this. I have access to somebody who's doing this on this level, in this form, or this fashion. And then that removes the comparison negatively to me. And then it doesn't put the burden on you for who I think you are.
Right. Right.
It's simply, I'm
Right.
appreciative. You figured out a way to make 100,000 last year. Whether if you sacrificed your marriage to do it, you figured out a way to do it. I'm not here to say you're amazing for doing it or that you're foolish for sacrificing your family. I'm just saying I know somebody who figured out a way to make $100,000. I'm gracious for doing that because there's information they have that I could get from them. And I
Yeah.
put a period at the end of the sentence.
Right. Well, and another thing is I have to tell myself, because a lot of times what goes through my head is, why do I even feel the way I feel? That's, why am I feeling this way? And the thing that we forget sometimes, or maybe we just need to know, I don't even know
Yeah.
if we forget, insecurities, that's a universal feeling.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a foreign to feel a little bit insecure.
Yeah.
To see somebody that might be more handsome than you, or somebody that might be, more financially, stable than you are, that has a better relationship. But it's normal to feel some insecurities. So you can't beat yourself. Now you definitely don't beat them up because they're
Yeah.
successful, right? We're not gonna be, oh, you think because you got a high school
You
diploma
think
now
you're better
you're better than me?
than me? Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
But I also have to tell myself that I'm a competitive guy.
Yeah.
And so when I look at some of my clients, and um, it's the feelings I'm feeling are normal.
Yeah.
They're absolutely normal. That, wow. And I try to use that as fuel.
Yeah.
Using it as fuel. But what are you thinking? I'm trying to think of where we were, just on the comparison. I think there's so little difference between the business side and the personal side.
Yeah, so like I said, the only difference is, like I said, it's not about looking for a mathematical equation to individual satisfaction, joy, or experience. So there's no way to say that the person who was a CEO of a company has a better life experience than the coffee barista. There's not the professional dog walker may have a much more satisfied life than the executive banker.
Exactly.
So if you have to look at what is it that you want out of this life as an individual, and what are you willing to pay to get it? And is what you're willing to pay something that you can live with? This is where I start looking at what is this, your overall joy, your happiness, your satisfaction. What is it that you're trying to do in this life? What are you willing to give up to it? And what can you live with if you do or do not achieve it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the individual. Everybody doesn't care about money. Right. Everyone doesn't care about a big house. Everyone doesn't care about being married. Everyone doesn't care about having children. Yeah. So there's not a universal standard like in business where you can say, this is in the red, this is in the black. This is a successful business. This is a failed business. There's not that same gauge.
Right.
So it's just looking at your life as, am I okay with what my life looks like? And if it's not, what are the things that I'm putting in place that are stopping me? What changes am I willing to make, or what am I not willing to make? Mm-hmm. I may realize, man, I'm a little disappointed in myself because I don't have a six-pack, but I'm not willing to give up Cheetos. So I'm never going to have the six-pack.
Right.
Okay. So every now and then I'll pass a mirror and I'll feel a certain kind of way, but I've decided that the Cheetos mean more to me than the six-pack.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go on and lick the dust off your fingers and go about your day.
Yeah.
But if you're saying, I want to have this, okay, what am I willing to give up? Okay, I'm willing to sacrifice the Cheetos because the six-pack means more to me.
Right.
Okay, then that's what I'm going to go. And that's not based upon if the person next to me has one or not.
Yeah. I think the encouragement that I would offer is you need to figure out how to be the best version of yourself. And I know I said it earlier in the episode. Yeah. I know I'm thriving to be, there was a time where I would look at a Magic Johnson, right? Big fan. And I'm thinking, man, what's Irvin doing right now? Is he working on the business? What is it? I realize at this stage, I've got to be the best version of myself. Yeah. I've often thought about, people that I may meet, and different people are attracted to different things, right? Yeah. But whether you're short or tall, fat or skinny, if some people think you the most beautiful woman in the world or ugly, but I just know that everybody, when they're getting ready to go out, and they put on that favorite outfit. When they look in the mirror, they like, they ain't ready. Look at me. I'm ready. And they may step out the house and it may not be somebody that's pleasing to me, but I know that when they left the house, Easter Sunday, going to church with that hat on, they was looking in the mirror like I'm about to hurt them.
Yeah.
Because they were being the best version of themselves, right? Shave, cut your hair, throw on a nice shirt. You're like, hey man, I'm ready. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. So, rather than comparing ourselves to other people, other companies, and again, we're not talking about competitors, right? That's different. But being the best version, you being the best Jermaine that you can be, I mean, that's the key, man. I mean, you don't need to even compare yourself.
So the only thing I say about that is that you have to be the version that you can best live with. Because the best version of you may be the most physically fit, the most emotionally sound, the most spiritually aligned, the most communicative, most healthy relationship. That may be the best version of you. That may not be the version you want to live.
Or that you're mentally and physically capable of achieving.
You may just like I said, you may be okay with the Cheetos and the TV, what is it, just fat and happy, sitting down
Dumb and happy,
somewhere.
yeah.
Like if it's the life you can live with. So it's the best version, quote unquote, that you can live with. Now, if you choose that route, but you're sitting over there hating yourself for what you've let your life become or opportunities you missed, and then that's not the life you can live with.
Right.
But if you're saying, look, I don't care about money. I work just enough to keep the lights on because I like heat. I work out just enough so I can move around and be. I'm this, and this. If that's the version you can live with that brings you the most personal satisfaction and joy.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
I would love to say that it was like if you're in your if you're optimum health, optimum spirituality, optimum. That would be me putting a requirement on you that may not be true for you.
Yeah, yeah.
So
well, a lot of us don't have a mental toughness, right? Like the Cheetos. I want a six pack, but I'm not giving up these Cheetos.
Then the honest statement is, I want the Cheetos.
Correct.
The honest statement is not, I want the six pack.
Yes, that's right.
The honest statement is, I want because when it comes down to the fork in the road, people will say, well, I want a little bit of both, or I want it. When it finally gets to the final fork in the road, is it the six pack or is it the Cheetos?
That's right.
It's the Cheetos.
It's the Cheetos.
Then I'm not going
to once you accept that,
six pack anymore.
But now you don't even have to compare yourself to the one with the six pack anymore.
Because I've decided I want the Cheetos.
Decided,
what can you live with?
That's right. So that's not even a real comparison anymore. So why am I beating myself up over something I really don't want?
That's why I tie everything to self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
What do you really want? What are you truly willing to sacrifice? How hard are you truly willing to? And not judging yourself if you're not trying to do all that or what you want to do. Let's just honestly look at, who am I? What do I want? What do I need? What am I willing to give up? What am I willing to put in? What am I willing to do? What am I not willing to do? What is that honest look? Now, it may change over time and experiences and perspective. But if I'm starting at this moment, what is honestly true for me? And from that point, move forward. Not what I'm supposed to or should or what they said or what that looked like. What is an honest account of me, where I am, what I want, what I'm willing to give and willing to work for?
Yep.
If you're making the decisions from that position, it eliminates a lot of this extra judgment, comparison, jealousy, envy, insecurity. It's like, look, I have decided this is where I'm at. On what I'm willing to do, the cost I'm willing to pay, the experiences I will or will not have because of my decisions. And that's the position that I'm making these moves from. It is a far better view in the mirror than the window.
Yeah.
So this is where I'm at. This is who I am. This is what I'm working with.
Yeah. So I just, I was taking some notes while you were talking because I want to be able to revisit some of this stuff. And I know we're coming up on the hour. So just to kind of, summarize a little bit, we pretty much hit on um, about, oh, I'm sorry, about 6 key items that we really want to practice, right? To stop comparing ourselves to others. So we talked a little bit about practicing gratitude.
Yeah.
Um, we talked about unlocking the power of contentment.
Yeah.
Don't compare yourself. I think you hit this one specifically. Don't compare your life to everyone else's highlight reel.
Yeah.
Focus on your strength, celebrate other people, and probably the thing that I do more is learn to compete with yourself instead of others. Right? If I push myself, and I mean really push myself. I'm competing this weekend, right? So I'm doing this over the hill powerlifting thing, and I can remember back in 2018 when I first started, I would look at the roster, and then I would Google everybody on the roster to see how they did in their last competitions.
Okay.
Right. And now I go in saying, okay, when I see this guy, I know he's going to bench X. So I got to be ready to beat him. And, what I found is I'm going to train as hard as I can train.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat clean. I'm going to get myself in the best condition that I can get in. The last time I competed, I did X. So I'm setting a goal of X plus 5.
Yeah.
And, that's where I've had my most success because nobody's going to be harder on me than me.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be harder on me than me. So, all right, man. So, I think this is a great show.
Yeah.
I know we've spread out a little bit more. We talked about comparing, but, it always kind of blossoms into so many other kind of subtopics, which I enjoy and hopefully they're beneficial. We did get a comment, but they were a little bit graphic, so I decided not to share it with everyone.
Oh, okay.
Maybe some good points, but not just for the public consumption.
Okay.
So how can people find you? Right, you got great knowledge, obviously. You got some great ideas, and I think you're in a position to help a lot of people. How do people get in touch with you? And talk a little bit about the DISC assessment.
Yeah, so the practice that I work around is based around a DISC assessment, which is basically a test that highlights how an individual communicates, interacts with other people, decision making, problem solving, systems orientated, how we are when we'll say everything's fine, and then even how we operate and how we interact when things aren't as fine. We find ourselves under stress or under pressure. It's a test that comes with a 22-page report. I would say human beings don't come with the owner's manual. This basically becomes ours.
Yep.
Highlights potential blind spots in behavior, a bunch of great information. For information on that or any of the coaching stuff, you can go to mykeystome.com. That's MYKEYSTOME, mykeystome.com. And all social media platforms are all at J Morris CEO.
Awesome. And I encourage anybody out there that's listening that you want to get that owner's manual for yourself. I've done the assessment. Again, I'm not just big brother, but I'm also a customer, and the product is excellent. I'm James Morris, owner of TMC Supply Chain Solutions. We're a national distribution fulfillment company. We're working with two of the largest carriers, freight forwarding companies on earth. I won't say their names, but anybody out there that's developing a new product, somebody that's thinking about, hey, if my stuff was in Amazon, who would do the distribution fulfillment? Just go to TMC Supply Chain Solutions. We've got warehousing in the Midwest. We've got 100,000 square feet in Houston, so we could store product. And then the bread and butter, the parent company is TMC Workforce Solutions or TMC Staffing. We're a national staffing consulting firm. For companies that need people, we find people. For people needing a job, we find jobs for people that need a job. So we bring those customers with those clients or those employees, and we bring those people together. So we got a client around the corner that had a big project and they needed 100 people. So they called me. Hey, I'm in the fourth largest city in the United States. I found 100 people that needed a job. We bring those two people together, and it builds a beautiful partnership. So TMC Workforce Solutions or TMC Staffing, we can come to where you are. So that's who we are. Again, just two brothers having some open, honest, transparent dialogue. Looking forward to continuing this. And hopefully, if people are listening, if there's some topics that you'd like to hear us talk about, please reach out. I think we tend to stay away from sports and politics. There's always some sports references. Not here for any contentious, no judgment. So, hey, thank you everybody for listening. Hey, Jermaine, appreciate you joining me, man. You're always great. You're the star of the show. And I appreciate the knowledge base. I'm proud of you. And I'm sure we'll talk before next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks everybody.
Thank you.